Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Trader's Take, and with Bitcoin currently sitting pretty comfortably just above 8,000, we turn now to our technical analyst from New York, Joe Says, to help us understand what's happening. Joe, are we climbing out from here? Is this the bottom? Is the bottom in, Joe? I need to know.
Yeah, well, this is the important thing here. We're actually consolidating just below 8,000. We're at 79.50 right now, and this is really dangerous territory to consolidate in my eyes. I kind of call this, over the weeks I've been talking about how sellers have been in control of the market, right? And we could see that evidence in these very small timescales when we see the big volume moves by the sellers, and then they don't really chase the book. They keep the liquidity low on the book in the order book on the sell side, so that buyers can sweep it back up and rebuild their positions, and then sellers just crush them again, right? And so this is kind of a process that I call a bear hug, where it's kind of like a big bear just kind of like preventing you from moving. Every time these bulls try to jump out of the water here and get some bullish gleam of hope, it's like the bears just consume them, and now we're consolidating in even more bearish zone right now. We're now $250 away from our 7,700 bottom, which is getting dangerous. We're kind of on this slow, sexy grind to 7,700, and I just think that it's like the more that the more that bears just keep really just consuming the bulls and preventing them from getting any steam, the bulls are really going to be just dropping like flies. And right now the order book is revealing that to us. I'm going to jump to screen share for a second, kind of show you guys what the order book looks like, and kind of just describe what I was talking about. So here we have, and there's a distinction. I'm going to kind of bring out a definition here. Let me make sure that, all right, so these are all updating. Now, this is all static support. You see how none of this is moving? This is all support that's been in the book for a number of days now, and anything above 7,700 is pretty static now. None of this stuff is moving. These are all sleepers that want to buy Bitcoin. They think the bottom is in, and this is perfect conditions for a big bag holder to sell into. And this is what's been happening. At 10K, it happened over and over again. And just for the terminology's sake, this is illiquidity. This is an illiquid order book up here. Right here, we have sellers chasing the book and running the price down, and you can see that there's a pretty robust liquidity within a good 5 or 6 aggregations, 50 pack here, 40 pack here, and then a couple 20 packs and a 20 pack run in the book. Up against 30, 47, and 30. So you can see that there's a little bit of dynamic, and this is what I would call dynamic activity. You can see it's very shifty, very dynamic. So this very static stuff from 7,700 and up is exactly what a big bag holder would want to sell into, especially these triple-digit numbers, high double digits. And I think that we're probably going to start taking some of this out, because you can see that even though this is slightly robust, we still are 16, 20, 30 packs. This still isn't enough, and I think this is telling me that the bulls are starting to roll over, which means that the competition to sell is going to be much more violent, and there's going to be much less liquidity in the books. Instead of having 100 pack, 50 pack, 70 pack, 90 pack, 100 pack at every aggregation, you could see this is very thin in certain areas, even as low as single digits. So the competition to sell that I'm talking about, assuming that these big bag holders really need to dump their stuff, and when I say big bag holders, I'm not just talking, let's talk about the big bag holders, like big money with a lot of accumulation, but now everyone in this space that accumulated anywhere above this point, above this value, is now a prospective seller. So we have big bag holders on the line that need to be ready to sell. That have probably been controlling and capping out a lot of this activity and preventing us from breaking really highly above 10K and such. And now we have all these people that bought in this territory, whether they're hodlers or not. We have at least a group of people in this area that are now sellers. So back here, it looks like this stuff is going to start flying through the window. I mean, all this Bitcoin in these areas, if the competition to sell starts, or more likely when the competition to sell starts, this is going to get nasty, and I think we're going to be looking at another double-digit day soon. But to bring it to the 15-minute chart, there was an observation that I wanted to point out here. So we've established a couple definitions here. The dynamic support is visible in volume relative to price action. It means sellers really don't have something to sell into in more static areas 8K and lower. That's, this was me saying that we're headed into 8K or lower territory yesterday evening. Now you can see that the volume on the sell side was very low volume. Even on this, nice decent price move, volume was a bit higher, right? But it was still very low volume after this pump, and I think that's because we have no buyers chasing the book, and that means we really don't have any bulls left. And I think we're nearing that stage of that competition to sell. Now where do things look right now? We had a nice big move to the downside, putting us to a low of 79.22, which was broken. We went into the high 78.80s. I was watching this when it happened, and I did see a big spoofer trying to show some support, give the support some teeth, but they weren't biting. I mean, they were just showing some strength without just doing a lot of talking without doing a lot of acting. So what that means is we had someone in the order book here showing triple-digit Bitcoin support, and it was dynamic movement. But the second their order was in danger of getting filled, they removed it. And what would that do? The whole purpose of a spoofer is to create psychological support for any buyer that would say, oh man, we have all this support in the order book, no bears are going to take this out, so I might as well market buy. That's the sole purpose of a spoofer, is to convince buyers and sellers to market buy or sell. So a spoofer on the sell side is trying to get sellers to market sell, and that's all visible over here in the trade history. So I think that spoofer, the fact that triple-digit spoofer is out of the window, just gone. I think that means that a lot of other spoofers are probably done, and I think we're in for a pretty rough ride here. The technical picture does illustrate that. We are looking at a breakdown from a descending triangle here, a mini descending triangle, but it's still observable. I'm going to take this. I'm going to accept this as valuable information, and moving into the weekly close, this is getting very ugly, and I think by sometime next week, I don't want to be too optimistic on my time scale here, but I think we're headed into the low 7,000s, and I actually I shifted my position from a low. I actually agree with Socrates on this one. His low target is 6,800, and I went from a low of probably, I was expecting a few big red days and our bounce target to be more like 6K. But judging by this accumulation that we have in this area and the fact that we did have some support here, I'm inclined to think that 6,800 is a more realistic target for a bottom and a reevaluation. So between 6,800 and 7,200 is kind of my expectation, and that's assuming that we're going to have a double-digit breakdown. So 10% from 8,000 puts us at 7,200, 15% puts us all the way at 6,800. So somewhere in between would be really, customary to me in Bitcoin, especially considering that we're looking at a volatile space ahead.
But do you anticipate that breakdown occurring in the manner that we saw, in the last week or so, where we had that big day of a massive teardown of double-digit percentages? Do you expect it to happen in that same way? Is it? I guess what I'm asking is, are we taking the elevator or the stairs when we head down to those new low targets?
Great question. I think it's the elevator in this case. Right now, we've been taking the stairs. The stairs for the past few days. We had a little bit of a hopeful run to meet with the 200 moving average, and so we've taken some stairs up and some stairs down. It's been a really, really kind of uncertain area, but I think the next move is going to be very decisive, and I think it's going to be the elevator. I'm kind of putting my money on the elevator, and it's going to be probably 10 to 15% move into total. I don't think it'll get much worse than that, at least in one day, is what I'm saying.
All right, and then obviously we need to turn now to alts and sort of take a look there, because there has been some slight gains against Bitcoin in the last 24 hours. Nothing hugely significant, but perhaps something worth looking at. Do you think they're all headed down the same path, or is there any hope somewhere for any alts out there?
I think there is some hope for some. I kind of don't, but I need to. I can't say that there is no hope whatsoever. We have 4,000 alts. We might even have some alts in the corner of the market that people just don't touch. You know what I mean? Don't trade. We have some serious hodlers in XRP. We have some serious hodlers with a number of other altcoins. But the advantage of XRP over something like Litecoin is that Litecoin needs miners. It's a proof of work protocol. And if Litecoin continues to decrease in value, we're talking about miners pulling plugs. They already had the block reward subsidy decrease in August. So miners will be pulling the plugs, and that makes Litecoin very susceptible. And I don't expect, if Bitcoin's on its way down to these terrible numbers, And obviously, altcoins are probably headed down too. Maybe not to zero in a lot of these cases, in some of these cases. But if Bitcoin's headed down, then a lot of, especially proof of work protocols, are probably in danger. And I think Litecoin's on one of the main ones in danger. And that's actually a good point that a good transition here, because I've been paying attention to altcoin dominance a little bit here. The one thing we're missing is ETH. Let me just get ETH back up here. It's something glitched out with it the other day, and I just haven't added it. But for the sake of having some additional info, let's get it in here. Let's see. ETH is in orange. Yeah, darn it. So ETH and XRP are both moving up. I'll have to change color on this. But point is, all right, so this is a perfect example. Bitcoin's losing some dominance. We're in the low 69%, and Litecoin appears to be gaining dominance, right? You would think, all right, the altcoins might have some life in them. But if we take a look at Litecoin, excuse me, let's get this to LTC USD, you'll see that we're actually trending sideways. And this is a prime example of the difference between hodlers hodling and Bitcoin price moves down, hodlers hodl. This means that literally the last people left, we do have a slight increase in Litecoin dominance against Bitcoin's loss of dominance, right? But we have nothing in price action. All that this tells me is that hodlers are hodling. If this is what it's come to, then this is going to get dangerous, because when hodlers, that's what the definition of capitulation is. It's when the permabulls sell, and that's going to be a very dangerous territory. And this is going to happen across the board. I think Litecoin is one of the ones that's kind of in my red zone danger in terms of potentially going to terribly low numbers and then getting 51% attacked to garbage, and just now it's just a member of the altcoin death pile. But then we have certain other protocols like XRP, where the founders mine the entire market cap, and they own they were in control of the distribution of the entire supply. So maybe their protocol isn't in as much danger of a Sybil attack or anything like that. But there's definitely the question is, will there be demand if Bitcoin's on its way down? Will cryptocurrency as a whole really get hurt? And I think the answer is yes. So I don't think anything's safe. And speaking of XRP, we can take a look there. Did you want to stop me and talk about anything there?
No. Let's take a look at XRP, and then I'll follow up with another question in a different angle afterwards.
Cool. All right. So I have this is pretty concrete to me. We definitely have an ascending move here. This is pretty clearly an ascending triangle. We have a couple points of contact here. It's not the best one, but what am I expecting to happen here? Well, considering XRP has been very, comfy in this channel here, and I don't know why this line keeps going away, but I'm just going to continue this line where the setup trend line and the sequential line was, because that has been very accurate. Now, this is the thing about XRP though. We had a clear descending triangle breakout, right? So in certain scenarios, and this is like an image that I drew long before it played out. I mean, this was, I think, one of my first articles for BLOCKTV, or one of my first handful of articles for BLOCKTV. This was in, let's see, where was it? There was an ascending, here it was, an ascending triangle. This one was kind of weak, but where we broke down. And it was after a pretty clear observation that we avoided a descending triangle breakdown as well. So descending triangle breakdown avoided. We jumped up, we skyrocketed into another ascending triangle, broke down, and I could easily see that playing out again over here. I mean, we had a very notable descending triangle here. I mean, the line probably would have been down here a bit more. But anyways, we broke out violently to the upside, and then we reversed. So I could easily see this ascending triangle being another fake out. And I really expect us within a reasonable amount of time, weeks to months, a couple months, to re-enter this wick space, and that would be the low 20-cent range for XRP. So I can easily see that happening. I think that XRP though does have a history of returning to this channel. We did get rejected by it very, very violently. So I'm very curious to see what happens next. But I would say, considering we've seen this formation before with XRP, I wouldn't be surprised if this ascending triangle is a fake out and a breakdown into the wick space, which will put us in the low 20-cent territory. So you said you had some questions you wanted to hit at a different angle there?
Yeah, so then I want to move more to the macro frame for a moment, to look at the externalities and external factors that may be impacting, because as we get through the month of October, we're getting ever closer to the launch of the Telegram Open Network, set to launch at least by the end of this month. Joe, from an analysis perspective, are you factoring this into your trades, and do you think that this will have any impact on how the market plays out over the weeks and months ahead?
There is an external narrative that I believe is probably one of the most important ones out there, and that will have an impact on the price, and that is October 14th. A judge recently ruled that Tether's appeal is IFINX, Bitfinex, Tether. Their appeal is not granted, and they are forced to produce documents to the New York Attorney General no later than October 14th. I do firmly believe that news is going to shake the market space, and I think it's going to be a very bearish scenario. I can't see any scenario that plays out any way other than neutral, because if say Tether is gone to zero, right? Let's just assume for 1 second that, you know what, it's revealed that there is a gigantic cover-up. There's a scam, it goes to zero, it's not worth anything, they're not backed, like they said they were, the financials don't prove anything. So Tether's worth zero, right? And right now, off the bat, with that assumption, the only people affected are Tether holders, right? Because that means that they can't sell their Tether to anything because it's worthless. So off the bat, we have a pretty neutral scenario where only one group of people are hurt, and that is anyone with Tether in their pocket or in a wallet, right? But I do think that will stimulate a panic. We'll have a mass exodus from Bitfinex. We'll have all kinds of weird, erratic activity. It could be volatile in both directions. But I firmly believe that it's going to cause panic, and panic is a more fearful response. And fear in a bear market is a terrible thing, right? It's not what we want in terms of if I was a bull, the last thing I'd want in a market space is fear, right? And so if we have fear, negative price action, this accumulation of all these terrible things. Including corporations that really entered the gates of Bitcoin and crypto and acted as a Federal Reserve and became the enemy that Bitcoin seeks to overthrow, then we're going to have some really big issues there. And I'm kind of looking forward to October 14th and the finalization of this investigation in probably coming months to years.
Well, it's certainly. All right, well, it certainly seems like it could be something to watch. Plenty of externalities playing on the markets at the moment, but also plenty to watch inside the markets. In the meantime, I want to thank you, Joe Saz, for helping to break down the market as it stands today. Plenty more for us to look at ahead, so make sure you stick with us at blocktv.com for all the latest news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.